Dead Island 2, a game that was stuck in development hell for what seems like over a decade. When we heard that Dead Island 2 was finally coming out, I went back and played Dead Island 1. The last time I played it before that time would have been way back in 2014 when we had the world famous Here Comes the Boom E3 trailer. Unless I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think Dead Island was ever a great game narratively. Although replaying it, I have to say I completely forgot that there was a character that was SA'd. And that, at least from my point of view, the story played it off as something that solely happened for shock value. There's no other sustaining factors in it. And it didn't add to the game's already subpar plot story. But anyways, this video isn't about Dead Island 1, so let's talk about 2. But just before we do, I just want to mention the best part of Dead Island 1.
Sam B got the thing that go bump in the night. Whoa, who do, bitch? Hide your kids, grab your wife, better get out of sight. Who do, bitch? Let's go. Sam B to Papa Shango, I'm Baron Samedi, handful of
LA, Los Angeles, California, the entertainment hub of the world and the place where many games take place. From the fictionalized Los Santos in Grand Theft Auto 5 all the way to Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. And Dead Island 2 is one of those games. Now, is LA the most unique setting for a game? No, clearly not from the aforementioned games. But LA is a large city with lots to offer. And with Dead Island, a beautiful looking game, I feel this game setting really shines. Especially when you're in the hilly areas. The game just looks amazing. Also, just looking at the Burning Hollywood sign, I like it. Maybe I did that a little too much because I think, you know, Hollywood should burn and all that. But hey, I wouldn't call Dead Island an open world game, but more of a segmented world, open world, where you can walk from one end of the map to the other, but not without going through a couple loading screens. Which means when I unlocked fast travel, you know I used it a lot to get around. Also, to just quickly add it in here, fast travel was the only time my game crashed. And it did so almost every time, especially when I was fast traveling for story events. And also, I'm going to say that this game has my favorite type of fast travel. You can't just do it. You need to find one of these maps scattered around the world, mostly in your safe houses. And you can only travel from map to map instead of like in other games being able to travel at any time to any location. So anyways, there are a total of 10 locations. Them being, oh god, here we go. Beverly Hills, the Hampton Hotel, Bel Air, Monarch Studios, Hollywood Boulevard, the Metro, the Pier, Venice Beach, Ocean Avenue, and the Brentwood Sewers. Some of these areas being a lot bigger and better than others. And some locations like the sewers and the metro basically being hallways to travel from one bigger location to another. But let's quickly talk of some of the locations. Bel Air is the game's starting location as you wake up next to some dumpster. In this area, the map has a couple large mansions. From Emma Johns, a chick you meet early in the story. Her home being one of your main safe zones throughout the game, to some old Hollywood actor's house, who you can meet through a side quest, to a mansion what is called the Goat Pen, which is quite possibly the most expensive futuristic TikTok content house I have ever seen. The Haplin Hotel, which I hope I'm saying correctly, but I'm probably not, is exactly what it sounds like. A hotel building. Not much else, just the hotel and a large empty road leading up to the hotel, which is a great place to train some zombies. Now, for the next two places, we're going to set a little challenge for myself. I'm going to see how many times I can say world famous. So, the world famous Venice Beach. And I have to say this one is one of my favorite depictions of the beach since GTA 5. It has everything from Muscle Beach to the police station. However, obscenely, I was unable to find the world famous skate park there. But I was able to run down the beach, like in that world famous trailer for Dead Island 2. Next up is the world famous Santa Monica Pier from the hit game Grand Theft Auto. It has the arcade. It has the world famous massive Ferris wheel. What else do you need? Ah, what's that? For the end of the pier to be on fire? Boom, the end of the pier's on fire. Now let's move on from all the world famousness to Beverly Hills. Unfortunately for me, there isn't much to the Beverly Hills section of the map. It just seems like a less good Bel Air. And maybe that's how it is in real life, I don't know. But outside of the main story and a couple of side quests, I didn't spend much time in Beverly Hills. And the rest of the locations don't really have a standout for me. So let's quickly list them off, ignoring the hallway areas. There is Monarch Studios, which is basically your normal run-of-the-mill studio lot in LA, sort of like your Warner Brothers. There's Ocean Avenue, which is like your main street, or in big cities, I guess just a normal street, with shopping centers, malls, cafes, hotels, bars, and the likes. And then there is, wait for it, the world famous Hollywood Boulevard, which is kind of just like an end location, so it isn't very big. It's basically just the Chinese theater and a little bit of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Believe it or not, Dead Island is a zombie franchise, and as we all know, there are only two things zombie games need to get right in order for the players to have a good time. And the first one of these is combat. If combat isn't enjoyable, well, you can't just play a zombie game by running away from all the zombies all the time. Although, now that I mention that, an 100% self-based zombie game, it does sound pretty interesting. There are 4 weapon types in Dead Island: close range, long range, throwables, and the 4th that I'll talk about in the story section. The close range combat is probably the main way to kill the undead. The game seems to focus on close range, as the last game did as well. And there are many options for close range, from hand to hand, which I mean, I don't have the focus or effort to main fisting zombies. Then there are so many melee weapons, from massive Zambi-sized hammers to little daggers, swords, golf clubs, scaffold pots, and your classic 4x2 bit of wood. And then obviously you can go into modding and add lots of extra stats. But also the weapons just sort of seem right, if that makes sense. Like the heavy hammers have a slow swing, but hits like a ton of bricks. And then your knives are very fast, but only doing like tiny cuts. It could take a while to kill a zombie with a knife, unless you have some sort of like electric or flame upgrade to them. Long range, firearms, guns, gats, the pew-pews. I'm not going to lie, I don't remember much about guns in the original, apart from the fact there was that one trick who could pull a gun out of thin air for her finishes, even if she didn't have a gun or ammo. Guns in this game seem a little bit overpowered, to be honest, unless I was just very lucky with my weapon drops and was standing at the right distance and all that. Because if it ever looked like I was going to have a problem with one of the bigger zombie classes, I would just pull out my gat, lace them up, and they'd be dead. And then there are throwables. This being anything from a little bit of meat used as zombie bait to the good old Molotov cocktail. To speak the truth, however, I may have forgot the button to use throwables as soon as I was told it, and didn't find out what it was till I fat-fingered the key trying to run away from a zombie. The second thing I was talking about that zombie games need to get right is gore, also known as blood. And Dead Island 2 gets it perfectly. From rooms being completely covered in blood, from maybe being a little bit too much. It's as you slice up zombies, the cuts also appear on the zombies' clothing. And not just like in a preset location, but from what I've seen, it was where the knife makes contact with the zombie's clothes is where the cut will happen. It'll gash into their skin. And at the same time then, after you slice up that zombie a little bit and it falls over, you can curb stomp its head into the pavement, which is pretty damn cool if you ask me. And the guts and the blood and chopping off limbs, it's just so good. Maybe I need to go to therapy. Also, it just crossed my mind while writing this part of the video, so it doesn't really make sense here, but I'm going to mention it anyways. Now, I'm not saying that this is what Dambuster Studios, the developer for Dead Island 2, did, but I'm going to say it's probably pretty easy to develop zombies AI, because if it's bad or stupid or just walks into walls, then you can say, hey, it's a zombie. They're the Walking Dead. They don't have brains. And now I really want to develop a really bad zombie game just to say that. So, moving on, just like in the first game, there are multiple characters you can pick to play. Them being Carla, Danny, Ryan, Jacob, and Bruno. And Amy, I think I forgot Amy. Now, I know that all these characters have better builds for different playstyles, but to be honest, I couldn't be bothered reading and planning out my build. So I just ended up picking Carla, as she has a perk that allows her to do extra damage while in large groups of zombies, which I imagine would be very helpful. Also, I'm pretty sure she's a tank. I'm not too sure though, but I played her as a tank and it worked out for me. So I'm going to say she's a tank. So she's like Sam B. And who doesn't love Sam B? Even though I'm sure no one plays Dead Island for the story, or any zombie game for the story for that point, it is there, and it is serviceable. The game starts off with you trying to escape LA amidst a zombie outbreak. Original. You make it onto a plane and you're flying out of Cali. You are on said plane with the other playable characters and two famous actors. That being Emma John and her husband, also famous actor Robert Steele. However, unbeknownst to anyone, Steele had been bitten, turning on the flight and causing the army to shoot down the plane near the Hollywood sign. After surviving the plane crash, you find Emma with her assistant and a guy called Ronnie. They then flee as soon as they hear zombies approaching, but invite you to come stay at their mansion. Before leaving for the Bel Air based mansion, you attempt to save someone's life and end up getting bitten by a member of the undead. After stumbling around feeling the effects of the bite, you wake up next to a dumpster and you find yourself just one house away from Emma's place, but clearly still feeling the effects of the zombie bite. But you quickly make your way to Emma's house and find the house under siege from the undead. As you kill all the zombies and then get the gate closed. After entering the home, you get a gun pulled on you due to said bite mark and then pass out, waking up handcuffed to some gym equipment. Finding out you haven't turned and in fact the bite is healed, it is assumed that you are immune. And then of course the thing that goes bang in the night shows up to reconnect with Emma. Anyways, you decide to go on to the extraction zone to see if anyone is still there. Making your way through the Goat Pen content house to end up at the Haplin Hotel. And of course, the army has been overrun by the Walking Dead, and after fighting a monster bride, you use a nearby radio and end up talking to a doctor who works for the CDC. You inform him about your immunity, and after that, you decide you're going to meet up with him. Also, so far, this game's story follows the story of the first game pretty closely. After informing Emma and the others of your plan, Sam suggests that you use the sewers to travel. You make your way through the sewers and run into a bit of a crazy guy living down there, who just so happens to be an ex-army pilot and also a massive Emma John fan, which I'm sure won't come back later in the story. At the end of the sewers, you run into a group of people led by an older woman. Then after seeing some wacky effects on them, they end up pushing you into a pit full of zombies, leaving you for dead. Until that is you tap into some kind of unbridled rage, becoming half zombie and ripping all the skinwalkers apart. Of course, this is the fourth style of combat I mentioned earlier, and it's pretty goddamn cool. However, confused about what just happened, both of course in the game, and I was also very confused, we resume our journey to find the doctor. And to get there, we have to go through a gauntlet, which I have to say may be one of the best segments of this game, and definitely my favorite. Anyways, then you meet the doctor named Reed, and Dr. Reed needs you to get proof of your immunity. Of course, you recommend just filming a zombie biting you, but no. We have to go to the Santa Monica Pier to get a sample of your blood from the doctor's CDC lab, which was set up there, which of course has been overrun by zombies. After doing all of this, you return to the doctor to see him talking to the lady from the sewer. However, you don't have time to question that as the doctor's daughter Tisha has gone missing. After finding Tisha, she informs you she knows who that woman is, a woman by the name of Conrad. And Tisha sends you to what I assume is this world's version of Apple. And from there you find your way into a lab owned by Conrad, where you find out that you are not the first person Dr. Reed has sent to a lab to make a cure from. And then in the lab, you find the corpse of said first person Dr. Reed worked on. And he turns into a freak zomboid thing. He attacks you, and in the fight, you barely win, needing to enter your zombie rage mode, as I call it. But then Tisha walks in the room and you attack her still in the rage mode. She defends herself, of course, but runs off before landing the final blow on you as you attempt to speak out to her. You are then awakened by Conrad with a white glow around her and her friends. She tells you that you are a part of a select few called the Nematon. Sorry, not the Nematon, that's from Teen Wolf. The Newman. And that there is no cure to the zombie virus. It is more of a rebirth, the Newman being kind of like vampires, but for zombies. After this, you head back to the hotel to question Reed, yet you see him and his daughter fleeing on a helicopter. So now you have a way out of LA and you go and find Sam B and Emma, and then the three of you go meet up with Patton.
B, you know, who do you voodoo, bitch?
The aforementioned sewer man, super fan of Emma Jaunt that definitely won't come up in the story again. And he doesn't want to leave his sewer. He's safe in his sewer. He's protected. But after a small pep talk from Emma...
You know Omen to Kill?
Yeah?
Remember how Randy couldn't get back in a car after his crash? But then, when the monster was about to get me, he suddenly shows up in a Camaro and saves me.
So cool.
I need you to be my Randy. Be Randy for all of us.
Okay, yeah! I'll try. Oh.
He agrees to fly you out. So you make your way to Hollywood Boulevard, where you know the chopper has landed. After getting there, however, it seems Sam B is becoming sick. So you go on alone to find Dr. Reed in a glass cage and Tisha helping him run tests on himself. A lot of dialogue commences, which I listened to most of it. He tells you that all humans have the autophage gene, and humans, however, don't. They are also, however, not the cure, but he has just so happened to made a cure by injecting human blood into a baby from birth. That baby just so happening to be Tisha. And then this is where he turns into that same freakazoid zombie that the first guy he's testing on turned into. But you... After a long and difficult fight, especially if you were underleveled at the time, you kill him and retrieve one vial of the cure, which will turn you back into a human from Newman. However, you give it to Sam, who has somehow lost his immunity. That was never really explained.
Does.
Not his head, you idiot!
Ay, puta. My bad.
And then Sam, Emma and Patton leave as you stay behind to find Tisha and the last cure for all of humanity. So that's the Dead Island 2 story. Pretty good. And Dead Island 2, a good game, which I did not expect after playing Saints Row. Is it great? No. Is it good? Yeah, sure. Blow off some time and stomp some zombie brains. The story was actually very interesting to me. Definitely interesting enough to keep me playing the game. Maybe not to go through and play it as every other character, because no thank you. And the game did end with a little bit of a cliffhanger with you going off to find Tisha and the cure and whatever was going on with Conrad and her friends towards the end. Now, I don't know if it's a cliffhanger for Dead Island 3 or the DLC, But all I'm gonna say is, let's hope we don't have to wait as long for the next entry in the Dead Island series, because I severely look forward to playing it after this game.